We're now going to move over to the ED&I section. So as you heard from Malcolm, ED&I has been a real focus for CIPS over the last year. And I've led a programme with workshops. We've launched our ED&I hub, and we've really put it at the heart of what we do. And so it was really important to include this as a section in the new report. Yvonne is going to join us shortly, and I'm so delighted that she's here today. I've worked with Yvonne on a number of things. You may have seen some podcasts on addressing the gender pay gap. She's done numerous branch presentations with amazing feedback. So I'd like to invite Yvonne to join me now, and she's going to share the results of the new section of the report. The world's completely transformed over the last year, and so must our approach to ED&I, and it's not a nice to have, it's imperative organisations really pursue an ED&I strategy and connect and create a sustainable future, but not for its own merits, but to attract and retain talented staff from a diverse pool, so the workforce represents the communities they serve and operate in. I'd like to invite Yvonne now to join me.
I'm here.
Hi,
I'm just
Yvonne.
trying to get my video working. Hello, everybody. Hi, Danielle.
Great to have you here. I just want to close because I heard a quote the other day, and I think that this really resonated with me, especially with ED&I. It was leaders cast a long shadow. So I really hope that people think about this when they listen to you today, and as leaders in the profession, take away some tips to create some awareness and positive action in your organisations. So I'll now hand over to you, Yvonne. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. And it's lovely to be here. I think it's the first time I've actually physically been or virtually been in one of your conferences and these presentations, although I contribute to the report that we do year on year. Just picking up on a couple of comments before I start my kind of formal observations. So Malcolm was talking about, this is an imperative. You've said the same. Scott's been alluding to it. One thing I would say is when we look at equality, diversity and inclusion, we're starting to see kind of concept creep quite a lot. So as well as those words, we're now seeing very closely aligned to this concepts of culture, belonging, sustainability, which obviously very clearly came through in Malcolm's comments. Social purpose, the way that links to reputation and brand. And from a Hayes perspective, as we kind of talk people, it definitely feeds into both recruitment and retention as people look to access opportunities and progress in the world of work. So I think that the agenda and the concept is kind of getting larger and larger and touches on so much. And you'll see a little bit of that as I kind of talk through to my remarks. So perhaps we could just open the first slide and turn up the first slide. Thanks, Steph. So I'm just going to start first of all with taking a little bit of a state of the nation. Scott's been talking about salaries and reward. We just need to go back a slide, please. Just talking about kind of salary and reward. And one of the measurement points when we look at equality of opportunity is pay. And I'm conscious that these comments may be slightly UK centric and we have a very international audience with us, so bear with us, but I think the principles do apply globally, albeit with some kind of localization and some kind of regional flavor. But basically, if we look at the gender pay gap, that's something that the UK government has really kind of got behind. It's a question of not if, but when we move into ethnicity pay reporting, probably representation around disability as well. And what we really see at the present time is that the gender pay gap persists across all sectors and in procurement as well. And that's a kind of year-on-year feature. Now, the gap is most pronounced at the advanced professional level, albeit there's been a reduction in the private sector kind of year-on-year within the kind of that senior advanced professional cohort. And it's probably worth investigating, why that is. There are lots of different factors that feed into why these pay gaps exist at all levels, and they're very well documented. But one of the areas that will really kind of start to drive change is an expectation around transparency of pay and reward. And that's a good way to strike and to really shine a light on this, because it will then lead to influencing action because people are then informed a little bit more. And where are we with that in terms of transparency of pay reporting? It's not on the slide, but if we again look at organisations across the UK, so we see that 85% and 68% respectively of public sector and charity not-for-profit organisations are transparent around their internal pay grade structures, but only 23% of organisations in the private sector are. So gender pay gap, big issue. It's going to be extended into race and ethnicity, probably into disability as well. So just kind of watch out for that and encourage transparency. So what I'm going to do now is just share a quite brief top line update for you on the impact and the importance that ED&I plays in the workplace, and how it's perceived and acted on in particular by procurement professionals in the hiring and progression of procurement talent. So if we could just move to the next slide, please. So I think, as everyone has said that's kind of preceded me, the world has certainly transformed over the last year, and consequently, so must our approach to ED&I. And I think that that is understood a lot more than it was. The pandemic has shone a real spotlight on the haves and the have-nots, and the concerns that maybe were in place around ED&I agendas where organisations were frankly fighting for survival and were in crisis mode, they very quickly transitioned into concepts of diversity, inclusion, linked to areas of well-being and, as I say, opportunity and less opportunity. And the increasing value, importance and expectations that professionals attribute to diverse and inclusive hiring practices just can't be ignored anymore. It's clear that procurement professionals want to engage with and take advantage of the many benefits that ED&I brings when it comes to accessing valuable skills, experience, organisational culture, reputation and brand, as I mentioned previously. An overwhelming 92% of respondents believe that a diverse and inclusive workplace and culture creates a more attractive place to work. So that's very important from a retention and a recruitment and a retention perspective. Having an ED&I strategy and linked action plan shows that an organisation is forward thinking and that it understands the importance of putting people at the heart of its business model in an environment that enables talented colleagues to fulfill their potential. That is basically the essence around ED&I and all the related concepts that link to it. So an ED&I strategy plan is no longer a nice to have, rather it is a critical factor in planning for future success. And taking no action absent a crisis, where action used to be taken, or even standing still is no longer an option. If we could just move to the next slide, please. Thank you. While designing and using diverse and inclusive hiring practices, some of which I'll come on to shortly, will certainly encourage applications and appointments from currently underrepresented parts of the communities in which we live and operate. There are benefits to be had by the profession and the function as a whole, so for everybody. So over and above accessing a wider talent pool, other benefits that are reported and proven include creating a more open, trusting workplace, improving staff retention, encouraging greater creativity, innovation, and productivity. Diverse and inclusive hiring practices are one of the hallmarks of a forward-thinking organisation, as I mentioned previously. This is increasingly a consideration for many professionals, but what we've found in procurement is that those studying towards their MCIPS and those with a minority ethnic heritage felt that a clear evidence to the commitment to ED&I were really important to them, both personally when they were looking to plan their careers and as an indicator of a likely success or the likely success, future success of an organisation they would choose to join or to work in. Next slide, please. So what about some practical points on this? So although there is certainly a long way to go towards achieving truly diverse, proportional, very important word there, representation in the workplace, and actually, as we've mentioned, in this kind of ever-changing world, the journey is never complete. There are a number of purposeful steps that organisations can take and individuals can actually look out for as evidence of commitments to encourage greater consideration and inclusion of diverse skills and experiences at a hiring stage, and in fact, at any stage where selection plays a part. So let's just start with the recruitment measure there, and one of the the key elements that when organisations are brave enough, they tend to include. So this is kind of middle right. You'll see around 1 in 5 organisations across all sectors have introduced diversity recruitment targets. What this does is it demonstrates the level of interest, intent, and accountability, importantly, when looking to bring talent into the organisation. What surprised me when we looked at the data and the responses with the questions that we asked was that actually only 40% set diversity targets for the recruitment agencies that they engaged with. So that is lower than I would have thought. And that's something, again, that I would suggest that as a profession, you do have a look at, certainly with your recruitment suppliers. One point I would make on this is that it very much needs to be a two-way street and a collaboration, a word we've used previously. As far as recruitment is concerned, it is easy to say, my expectation is that you'll produce X, Y, and Z. And we very often see that in some of the bids and the ways in which customers are looking to engage with us and clients are looking to engage with us. And I would just urge you, if you are looking to take on this particular tactic, and I do suggest that you do, that you open up a conversation and you understand and work away in a methodology that will allow you to work with your suppliers, with your recruitment suppliers, to identify what your priorities are, what the kind of messaging is, and together we can kind of move forwards. Just setting the target and changing nothing else in reality isn't going to change very much. That's just my plea there to you all. Looking at some kind of other data points there. So 61% of organisations that were kind of surveyed were reviewing and actively reviewing all of their recruitment materials for the use of biased language and then removing or adjusting it as appropriate. It's a very important action point to take. Nearly half provided training for managers to mitigate the impact of unconscious bias, or as I would prefer to say it now, the promotion of conscious inclusion. Again, very important component there. Examples like these and the others listed here are really evident and are vital to show that we are serious about our intent to create and support more equitable access to opportunities and progression in the world of work. Hayes have produced lots of different insights, reports, top tips. We're very happy to share them with you. Podcasts, etc., that really talk about this agenda. So that's just a very brief kind of oversight of some of the key areas that we encourage you to consider, certainly from a hiring and a selection perspective. But if you want to continue the conversation, please do get in touch with Scott and I, and we'd be very happy to support you in any which way we can. Thank you very much.